Thank you. As he said, my name is Dan Warren. I'm from the Institute for Applied Research and Youth Development at Tufts University. And so what we do at our institute is we study what goes right in the lives of kids. That's our whole mantra. We don't want to know necessarily just focusing on the problems of kids. We want to know what goes right in the lives of kids. And one of the things that goes right in the lives of kids is scouting, and that's why you're all here and you feel it at some level. Let me try to help you out and to prove that a little bit and give you some, as he said, some ammunition. What is scouting all about? Sometimes we get a bit lost. We can't see the forest through the trees, as it were. And I'm here today to try to give you a new way of looking at scouting from a different view, a positive view that not only validates the love and commitment that you have for scouting, but also challenges you to question some of the beliefs that you have about scouting, a view that drives you to think beyond the knots, beyond the rank, beyond the membership, to a whole child who is growing as part of a family, a community, a society, a culture, an ecosystem, and a place in time. A view that clarifies the route to leadership, to character development, to citizenship, to fitness. You might have seen this kicking around somewhere. But first, and this is going to seem a little strange, but stick with me through this, because I feel it's profound. I may be a little bit biased, but I do. So first, a bit of perspective. This is good. I taught fifth grade for 9 years, and I started using this next piece, which I'm going to talk to you about, and it is shamelessly stolen, I will admit that, from a guy named Bill Bryson, an author that I love. This is from a short history of nearly everything, and I and my parents of my students, when we think about kids that are in our programs. So, I'm going to go real big on you now, but again, work with me. Trillions atoms assemble at one time only pattern to form you. This configuration of atoms has never been done before, and it will never be repeated. The atoms that you are made of have no idea that you are even there. Actually, they have no idea that they're even there. All of the tiny particles that make you up are not alive. If you picked yourself apart with tweezers, one atom at a time, there would be a pile of fine atomic dust. Strangely, the same atoms that made you on Earth refuse to assemble in the same way in all other known places in the universe. What I hope that you gather from this is that you are unique. Now, to be sitting here today, you have been the recipient of some biological good fortune. Billions and billions of living things have existed since the dawn of time. 99.99% of those are extinct. So congratulations. You are part of the lucky 1/100%. Just think, in the last 3.8 billion years, every one of your ancestors has been fortunate enough to find a healthy mate to produce healthy offspring. None of your ancestors have been squashed, eaten, drowned, starved, stranded, wounded, or somehow incapacitated. So what I hope you get from this is you are fortunate. Now, back to the atoms that make you up. So as you know from science, an atom is very, very small. It is 1/10,000,000th of a millimeter. Every atom that you possess has passed through several stars and has been part of millions of organisms on its way to becoming you. At death, each person contains a large number, 1 billion is suggested, of atoms that once belonged to a person who died decades ago. What I hope you're getting from that is that you are connected. Now, let's get a little bit more specific, because everything could be more specific in your mind at this point. That's kind of big. But, and I always got to work my daughter into every presentation that I do. So let's get more specific and think about some essential concepts in human development. And since there are many who are far smarter and more eloquent than I've chosen to use their words. Every man is in certain respects like other men, like some other men, and like no other man. So in some ways, we are all alike because we are human. Every person is born, every person learns to navigate the world, and every person dies. These and many other experiences are shared by all humans. Unfortunately, the things that make us the same are often overlooked in our society because we tend to focus on the things that make us different. As you look more closely at the ways in which we experience these common life aspects, then you begin to see how different groups experience the events in similar and different ways. Every man is like some other man. You can imagine that a boy in the suburbs of San Francisco finds it very normal to go to a supermarket and buy food, whereas a boy from Alaska, who is a homesteader, may work with his family to hunt or grow all of their own food. It's common to need food, but we may go about it in very different ways that are only common to a group that we belong to. If you look even more closely, you'll find that each person is truly unique. Although we may have common needs, we may also satisfy those needs in similar ways to those around us. We are truly one of a kind when it comes to our experiences. In this way, every man is like
really trying to hit you. There we go.
every man is like no other man. So we are all individuals because of the matter that makes us up, the experiences that we have in the world, and our feelings and experiences in the world. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man. And beyond understanding what and who we are, it's also extremely important to recognize when we are, that we are living and growing in a specific time in history. We always exist in a time that has never happened before. Therefore, comparing the experiences from other generations, it may be useful in some ways and difficult in other ways. Using phrases like, "when I was your age," or "kids today are," they're great when a person is trying to share their experiences, but could be less helpful if the meaning is interpreted as, "this is how it is," or "should be today." One of my favorite quotes from Karen Pittman: "Problem-free is not fully prepared." It's not enough to say that since a person has no problems, that they are clearly developing well. This deficit view of youth, especially adolescence, has permeated our culture at every level. We have focused exclusively on keeping kids out of trouble, not helping them develop fully. And there's a giant difference between these two things. We all know that some of our best growth comes from challenges, even the challenges that we created ourselves, that we got ourselves into. That's where growth often occurs. In an effort to dispel this kind of view of youth, a movement began. And that movement is called positive youth development. PYD has been becoming more popular in the world over the past 10 years. This perspective is built around the idea that all youth have the strengths and the potential to be happy and healthy humans. It works to get rid of the common belief that young people are simply problems to be managed. And it replaces this idea with the view that young people are resources to be developed. And PYD is built around 6 core ideas. Because of the potential to change, all youth have strengths. All youths. All contexts have strengths as well. These strengths are resources that may be used to promote positive youth development. And these resources are termed developmental assets. You may have seen this stuff around before. They're the stuff that people need to grow in a healthy way. These assets, the idea here is that when you combine the strengths of the youth with developmental assets, you get healthy development. So, where is this stuff found? You find it all over the place. These assets are found in families, in schools, in faith institutions, youth-serving organizations like yourself, and community-based youth development programs. Most importantly, and this is the one that really drives you home, is that all youth can develop well, and all youth can find the good stuff that they need to grow. There's no some kids just can't get it. That just doesn't make any sense. Now, similar to the idea that youth are just not problems to be managed, youth programs are not simply created to keep youth out of trouble. This narrow view loses the rich and broad impact that some programs have on the lives of youth, families, communities, and society. Because of this limited view, people may think that all out-of-school programs are equal, right? The kids go to them, they do some things, and they come home. Well, this could not be further from the truth. Extensive research has shown that there are great differences in the impact of programs that are termed youth development and those which are not, ones that are more babysitting. Out-of-school time youth development programs that promote a PYD perspective are designed to be safe places. That's the key. Without a safe place, you have nothing. It must be safe. And they have these other components that we term as the big three. Now, the way that I like to think of the big three is that the big three are a criteria that you should use to judge every program on whether it's a good program or not. And let me run you through these things. First, they provide youth with extensive opportunities for sustained, caring, and supporting relationship with adults. And the research suggests is that if this is less than a year, it's not effective. Number two, that they promote the development of life skills through program activities, things that help a kid navigate their world and that they can apply in their world in effective ways. And number three, that they provide opportunities to contribute to and assume a leadership role in valued family, school, or community activities. These are the keys. These are the ecological assets, the stuff that's linked to the development of PYD and youth contribution. If it doesn't have these things, it's not going to be a life-changing program for a kid. So, Scouting accomplishes this. You're probably looking at this saying, yeah, that's exactly what we do. Great. So Scouting accomplishes this by recruiting and training thoughtful and caring adults for leadership positions that extend over a year in a variety of settings. So boom, that's you guys. Well done. Scouting is full of skills that can be directly applied to the life of a growing boy. From cooking skills to crafting skills, they bring them into their daily lives all of the time. Also, they have life skills like grit and communication are all aspects of Scouting. So boom, you got that one. As a Scout progresses in the program, they are able to take on more and more responsibility for leadership in a unit. Until then, Scouts will learn through modeling from those boys who are learning to lead as well as trained adult leaders. Boom. You got that one too. Scouting clearly and thoroughly takes care of the big three. So, when you get these community-based youth development program like yourself, and you put these things in, you put youth leadership, sustained youth adult partnerships, and skill-building activities in there, what do you get? You get two things. You get positive youth development. You get happy and healthy kids that are growing in productive ways. And you get another big thing. You get community contribution. It's not just the kid that benefits from this. It's the family that benefits from this. It is the community that benefits from this. So congratulations. Scouting is a great example of the big three in practice. So what about other programs? How do you as a leader compete with time? You deal with this all the time. You say, okay, well, is he going to go to Little League practice today, or is he going to come to a meeting? And you're always struggling with this, and I hear it all the time. So let's talk about sports for a second. More than 80% of American youth either currently participate or have participated in sports programs. And American youth spend more time in sports programs than any other organized out-of-school activity. Since sports programs are so popular, there's been lots of people wondering about, well, what do they do? Are they good for kids? Are they not good for kids? And there's been a lot of research on this. And in fact, the news is good stuff and there's some not so good stuff. And so there's kind of equal piles on this. Some of the good stuff that they talk about that sports does is that it improves grades in schools. Kids feel better about themselves. And they show leadership. And that's some research. There's another pile of research that I could look at that says that it increases aggressive behavior, and that it reduces your ability to see right and wrong, and that it increases your chances for risky behavior. Well, what I do know, and honestly, you could agree or disagree with all of these, and sometimes that's the beauty of research. You can find, both sides of the coin all the time. But in this case, it really doesn't matter, because the idea here is that if you take a program like sports, which would not qualify in most situations for the big three, because it's a seasonal type of sport, it's a seasonal type of activity. If you take that and you combine that with scouting, you get amazing results. So kids who participate in sports alone and nothing else, no character types of programs, no strong youth development programs, they don't do so well. In fact, in terms of PYD, they don't show great results. When you look at kids who are in just scouts, they do good things. When you put sports on top of scouts, or in other research on top of a program like 4-H, which has similar aspects and it passes the big three, you get exponential results. You get amazing results. It seems like it unlocks some capacity to sports. Maybe it gives it some gravity. It gives it some core that these other programs get added onto. It is outstanding results. So it's not just what kind of program, it's how many programs. So you should know that youth, on average, nationally, participate in at least in 3 out-of-school programs per year. Okay, so that's if we think about it this way, every week they're in 3 programs. And I got some information about scouting that they said that it's more like 5 for scouts. And I haven't seen data on that, but that's what they say. Anyway, so what's the relationship between these, between the number of programs and PYD? Well, here's what happens. It's actually pretty linear. The more programs you're in, your PYD goes up. Well, that's true, but there's a certain point where it's diminishing returns. So if a kid is participating in more than 4 programs at any point, it actually plateaus. It stops making a difference in a kid's life. And then after you get past like 6, I don't know how you would even possibly do that, but there's some indications that it can start working against you. It definitely works against whoever has to drive them around. So anyway, so that's what kind and how many, and so let's look at this other thing, and this is where the meat of it is for me. This is the 5C model of positive youth development, and I love this thing. There's a lot of research that I don't like, even things that we do necessarily that I think, I could take it or leave it. I love this model, and we developed this at the Institute under Rich Lerner, who I work for, the professor that I work for. And what this is a model to describe PYD and how it works. So as I said before, you take those individual strengths that a kid has, and you got some ecological assets. That means the good stuff around them, right? And you put those resources together with the strengths of those kids, and the interaction between those produces positive youth development. Now, what is positive youth development? The way that we look at positive youth development is we break it down into the 5 C's. Now, you could call these, honestly, you could call them whatever you want. I don't care. It's easy to remember because they're C's. But the important part is that these are 5 distinct domains. They're 5 distinct buckets that we can put things into that don't have a whole lot of overlap with each other. So, we talk about competence, we talk about confidence, connection, caring, and character. So competence, positive views of one's ability. And this tends to refer to the skills and knowledge, right? It's the stuff you know and the stuff you know how to do. Confidence is an internal sense of worth and effectiveness. Connection, good relationships with people and institutions where both sides benefit. I can't stress that enough. When you think it's one directional and you say, I am helping you, if you don't feel as a leader like you're growing in this situation, then this is not a mutually beneficial relationship. And most of you do because you're sitting here. The idea is that both parties in this have to be growing together. It's important for all involved. Caring, a sense of sympathy and empathy for others. And character, something that you guys do extremely well and pride yourself on. It's very clear to look at the character of a Boy Scout. That's what you're known for. And we talk about character, we talk about an idea of respect for cultural norms, as well as a sense of right and wrong. Some people say this performance character and moral character. It's what I feel is right, and then how I go about things like, am I diligent? Do I have grit? You hear that now a lot. So the idea here is that when you have a balance of the 5 C's in PYD, and you're holistically developing a kid, you get, as I said before, you get contribution. And you also get reduced risk behavior. Contribution. And contribution is to self, to family, to community. That's important. And self is really important. They have to be contributing to their self. It's not just a service project. They have to be contributing to themselves. Now, if we looked at contribution, I could also put that in, and you may recognize, that again, is that this is contribution. They're contributing in your program through leadership, through character development, through citizenship, through fitness. That's how they're contributing. So you can also talk about the 5 C's at a group level. And I love this. I've worked with schools a lot. Yesterday I was at your council office, and we were talking to some of your staff about this. It was an interesting discussion. You can look at this at a group level. You could look at this at a programmatic level. Am I balancing all these things out for the life of a kid? So, what would this look like as a leader? So how could I look like to see if my unit was balanced in terms of the 5 C's? So you might say, which of the 5 C's is my unit best on delivering on? We might be outstanding. Our kids know every lashing. They can whip them off with their eyes shut. They can do every scout skill that's imaginable, but they don't like each other. Okay, you got high competence, but you have no connection. So you might be doing one of these things really well, or a couple of these things really well. You also might have other areas where you're struggling on that. You might say, I know they can do it, they just don't have the confidence to do it. How do I work on that? How do I balance that out? How do I change my program so that works? And then, what is a way that we can use one strength to improve upon another? Right? So, you've been to camporees, this competitions, and you say, they're really good at this stuff, they just don't have the confidence. Well, when they start winning things, and they're like, wow, maybe we are good at this thing. How do you take kids who have great character, and how do you use that character to say you are all good people? Good people get along. Good people are people who are connected. So you can use these things to move on. And so I had examples of working on scout skills of competence, the confidence to try, fail, and try again. That's where confidence comes from. The oath and law stressing on things like that for character. And cohesive patrols, you might just need to really work on your connection. You might have to focus on that area if it seems to be a weakness. I want to take you really quickly through a study that we're doing with the Cradle of Liberty Council. And what we're doing is we're trying to measure the outcomes of the BSA, and we're looking at character. We're looking at the relationship between character and some of the program stuff that was going on. So this was a grant from the John Templeton Foundation in Philadelphia, where we were looking to answer, does scouting promote character in youth? And if so, how do they do it? And so we sent out this questionnaire. It looked like, this is one little page of it. We sent this out to about 4,000 kids for 2.5 years, twice a year. And we got a bunch of information. And what we did, we looked at things like, you may recognize the words it would be your left, I suppose. We also looked at academic competence, future-mindedness and goal setting, scouting engagement. How much are they into this whole thing? And so the results of this, I want to use some commonly held beliefs about scouting to address some of our findings. And I love this. So the myth one, this is what you guys all hear, right? So yeah, so you make great men of character. Well, they came that way. You just went and skimmed the cream off the top, and you brought them in, and they were great by the time they left too. So how is that surprising? The idea is that they come that way. And you guys just bring them along. This is absolutely not true. In fact, when we looked at this, you can't tell the scouts from the non-scouts when they arrive at your doorstep. We can't tell the difference. In terms of their data are no different. You have the same kids. You have the ordinary range of kids. But now, after a couple years in the program, something seems to happen. Change seems to happen, and there is a difference. That difference is in pro-social behavior. So when scouts asking them what's the most important thing to them, here's what they say. They say doing the right thing. They say helping others. What they do not say, and kids who are not scouts tend to pick, is things like being smart, being the best, playing sports. Myth number 2. Little dab will do you. Just come to the meetings and everything will be great. Just be a scout and everything else will work itself out. Yeah, that does make a difference. But the more that they participate, it's the intensity at which they participate. If they are going to meetings, going to weekend activities, going to summer camp, each time they're participating more, a bigger difference gets made. Scouting is a full year program that is not just at a meeting. And the research shows that. The benefit gets better and better. Myth number 3. It takes 3 years, and I've heard 3 years, we've heard 5 years. There's some magic number of calendar pages you have to flip that gets you to the result and say, oh, now they're there. Building on my comment before, that's actually not the case. We see benefit far before 3 years based on engagement. How much are they engaged in the program? How much are they participating? That's what makes the difference. What's important here is that you realize also that scouting is a lifelong trail. It is something that takes a boy from 7 to 18 and then beyond into your types of position. It needs to be viewed in a lifespan perspective, because when you start looking at what goes on in the lives of kids after Cub Scouts, you guys have some giant things to deal with. And you have an amazing part of a kid's life to shepherd them through. You have the opportunity to deal with puberty. It sounds, people say, oh God, no, but no, actually it's a time of the most amount of creativity of a kid. It's a fantastic time to shape and to help them shape themselves. There's the increased role of peer group. Patrol method kind of works there really well. And identity formation, they're figuring out who they are during this period. So when you take your scout methods and you line them up, it's perfect. A developmentalist could not have done this better. if they had years and years and years of research and Baden-Powell kind of whipped this thing up. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So this is important to understand the massive amount of development that's going on in these kids' life and how to positively use the 5 C's to think about this as a growth experience, not just keeping them out of other things. If you want to check out some more of this, and this is a brief view. There's 2 books I recommend. Rich Lerner, who I work for at Tufts at the Institute, he wrote The Good Teen. This is based on the 5 C's. It's a really fantastic book. Brings a lot of clarity to parents, and it brings a lot of clarity to youth-serving professionals as well. Some of you may have read How Children Succeed by Paul Tufts. Paul's a journalist. I like to point that out. He finds some interesting people to talk to, but it's kind of what's in vogue at the time is what Paul is talking about. Really helpful stuff for parents. Anytime that I can work Ricky Bobby into things, especially if I can get a Cub Scout to hang out with Ricky Bobby, I think that's fantastic. I want to thank you for giving me the time and the space to talk today. I appreciate what you're doing as a former Scout. I would not be in the situation, remotely close to the situation I am, if it wasn't for people like you who were there in my life and provided me with that non-parent mentor that is vital in kids' lives, especially during those adolescent years when you need that ear that is not mom or dad. So I appreciate deeply what you're doing. If we can be helpful in helping you understand the kids that you serve and the families that you work with, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can contact us through Jerry. I'd be more than happy to give you information. So thank you, and keep up the good work.